So I got a mammogram a couple of months prior to COVID coming through. And then they called me about a week later. They said, we need you to come back in for a mammogram again. We're not sure if there's anything, we'll see. And so I said, sure, but I'm too busy. And so I need you to give me some dates and times that are available. And lo and behold, 2 months later was the first time I could get in. And so I got in to see them 2 months later, but COVID happened in the middle of all of this. And so in all my travels, I was suddenly homebound, and they called me to say, are you sure you still want to go to the institution to get your mammogram, or would you rather come to the breast center? I said, no, the institution's really small. I'll just go there. So I kept my original appointment. And when I went in to get my subsequent mammogram and also an ultrasound, if they needed to see what they thought they might see, sure enough, they saw something that they thought they would need to biopsy. So we held I stayed at the hospital and waited until they could squeeze me in for a biopsy. And, the interesting thing for me is I'm laying there and they've got masks on and I've got masks on and I'm unsheathed. And so I don't have anything covering me. And there was some comfort in having the mask on because, I don't know, there's something about all women exams where you just kind of have to bear everything. And it's a little embarrassing. They try to make small talk, but it's just real uncomfortable. So this was an opportunity. I felt a little protected by laying there with my mask on, and I couldn't really tell their reaction because they had a mask on. And, I could tell they were seeing something on the ultrasound. They were measuring it. I saw her putting markers in to measure the size. And so I knew, this is something they're probably going to, want to follow up on. So they took some biopsies. In the middle of all of this, I had gone through a transition of my primary care provider. So my first physician was someone that when I originally sat in the room, it felt like I was the smartest person in the room. And that made me uncomfortable. And so I was seeking a different primary care provider. And between the first mammogram and the second mammogram, I had found a second primary care provider. But an hour after I got home from my biopsy, the first primary care provider called me and said, this is Dr. Not the Sharpest Tool in the Shed. I just got your report and I'm not happy. And it's the first time in all of this of getting a potential diagnosis that my heart jumped into my chest, up in my chest. And I thought, oh my God, what does he know? And I quickly said to him, hey, listen, I've transferred primary care providers. I need you to make sure that my new one has this information. If you could please share that with him, that would be great. And I got off the phone with him. And after that, I quickly got on the phone and called the nurse that had done the biopsy or helped assisted in the biopsy. She had given me her number and her hours. And I said, Kamala, what is he talking about? I just got this phone call. And she said, you got to be kidding. They haven't even picked up your sample yet. And we realized that he was just now reading something from my mammogram 2 months prior. So again, just making me feel more confident about changing my primary care provider. But it did cause me to, when I got off the phone, seriously think, what if I did get that phone call and someone said they weren't happy with what they found? And so my biopsy was on Friday, and I spent the weekend thinking, what if? And I've been in the oncology space for 30 years. I've talked the talk. I work with a lot of different providers and different folks, and now I get to walk the walk. But everywhere I've ever lived, I've always thought to myself, oh, if I had this or I had that, I would go see him or I'd go see her. And I'd not done that since I moved to Connecticut. And so when this came to being a reality, I just sat back and thought, you know, let me take a moment to say, if this comes in positive, I need to kind of say, what would my game plan be? So I thought about it for a little while and came up with the medical oncologist I thought would be reasonable for me to see, that would be easy for me to see, collaborative with the surgeon that I wanted to see, and also knew enough about the community setting that he got it, but also had a lot of clinical trials at his fingertips in case I needed it. And had worked with him a bit in the past and felt comfortable with him. But that's kind of what I did from Friday to Monday, just trying to figure out if I had needed a game plan, this is what I would have. And it gave me a lot of peace and comfort knowing that I could just sit back and relax and know that I had a game plan. So Monday they called and I got a call from the hospital saying, you have invasive ductal carcinoma. And so I thought to myself, okay. They wanted to send me to a surgeon, and I said, let me think about this and I'll follow up with you. It was a surgeon locally. And I immediately placed a phone call in to the surgeon I wanted to work with. That was about an hour away, but I still felt like that was reasonable. And well-respected, someone I've worked a lot with in this space. And she immediately made time for me, took my phone call. I shared with her what I knew and told her as things came in, that we would make sure and get those things to her. And immediately she got on the phone, she got the ball rolling. She had nurses and calling me, setting up things, setting up appointments, making sure that the medical oncologist I had chosen was going to be in the loop as quickly as possible. And so we just started making a game plan on Monday, not knowing a lot of data yet, but just making sure that I had the confidence of knowing that I had access. And I think that made me feel better. On Tuesday, I found out from the nurse navigator from the local surgery center that I had ERPR positive and the HER2 had not been done yet. And so I made her aware that I'd already reached out to a surgeon and she could take me off her list. Her concern was that I was not falling through the cracks and that I had a game plan and that I had an appointment. And she quickly figured out that I knew what a Ki-67 was and the difference between HER2, and ERPR. And I did find out I had vascular invasion. She shared with me that I was histological grade 1, nuclear grade 1, and that the size was 0.8 by 0.7 by 0.6 centimeters. And when I told my surgeon that it was going to be, that I thought it was less than 1 centimeter is what I was told, and she said, we need the specifics because less than and being less than are very different. And so sure enough, I was less than and definitively, and she felt better about that at that point, moving forward with the game plan. Found out on Wednesday from my new primary care provider that it was HER2 negative. He had followed up with me just to check in to make sure that I had a plan, that I had an appointment, and he was going to make an appointment for me with the same surgeon locally. And I assured him that I had a plan and he felt comfortable with that and just asked to stay in the loop. On Friday of that same week, I went in to the medical oncologist to see him at his center about 30 minutes from my house. And the surgeon face chatted in on my cell phone, and we propped her up on the counter, and she participated in the exam and the consultation. So I had both of them in the same space coming together to talk to me. And the same thing happened to me with the medical oncologist. He had a mask on and his nurse had a mask on and I had a mask on. And there was just something about going, here they are, and not being as timid or shy or all the body conscious things that women go through because of my COVID mask. It was interesting to be able to just feel a little bit of protection, anonymity a little bit from having the mask on, and having my surgeon consulting with me, on a cell phone, looking at my body as well. It was just interesting to have all that play out. So we had an excellent conversation there in the office. Interestingly, the cancer center was just very quiet and sparse and bare. There were individuals sitting by themselves with there would be one chair available and 2 chairs covered in blue plastic, and then 1 chair available and 2 chairs covered in blue plastic for social distancing purposes. They took my temperature when I went in before I could even enter the center, like at the door. So they were doing all the things they could to make me feel that they were protecting me and themselves. But, getting a diagnosis during that time, suggestions the doctors could give me were also very different from what they would normally do. They called it the European model, which instead of starting with surgery, they said we could start with chemotherapy if I felt comfortable. Apparently, a lot of women feel the need to get this out quickly. I didn't feel that way because it wasn't anything I felt. And the fact that the mammogram found it, I think also because I couldn't feel it, it's just something I was fine with, knowing that the possibility of chemo or hormone therapy could shrink it down prior to chemo, or prior to surgery rather. They did leave a marker in when they did the biopsy, and that marker will be what the surgeon looks for if they can't find the tumor because it's shrunk down so small. That's my hope, is that she can't find anything but the marker. And so currently I'm taking tamoxifen, and I have a consultation set up in June with the surgeon, and we'll see how that goes.